is landed in Leadership and Enlightenment, a podcast where the guests are exceptional humans that have faced their fears to crest into their best selves, growing into a way they can help their communities, creating opportunities, and sharing their secrets and their tips that they learned along the way. Without further ado, here we are, my friends. Have a great time today and enjoy Leadership and Enlightenment. My friend Jen, this is going to be a fun conversation. I mean, you being a part of our team now with M&Me has been absolutely amazing. You bring so much light to us, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to join the team. Different ball game for me. Totally flip sides from being a VP of hotel sales. So it's great. It's been a great experience so far.
You got a good bunch of people around you to help you get to this place. I know that we would love to just jump into where we're at now, but the audience always loves to get to know us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who Jen was coming out of high school. I always love to learn a little bit about us.
Who Jen was coming out of high school. I was a cheerleader my whole life. I've always been very just out there, loving people, love being a part of everything that's going on. Coming right out of high school, I just was ready to experience life. I remember, my mom called and said like, "Hey, I just came home and all your stuff's gone." And I'm like, "I moved out today."
Okay, so you're a driven person? Is that what we're saying?
Driven person, absolutely. Dove into hospitality pretty quickly. And that, to me started in bartending and waitressing and, finding this passion and this love of what I was going to do and, managing restaurants and then going to hotels for really almost all of my career.
Well, let's slow down there for a second because I got my start the same way. I always joke, I was in desperation looking for a job going to college, and I walked in this hotel and they gave me a busboy's job. And I'm like, I don't even know what a busboy is, but I'm going to do that.
But I'll do it.
And it led me to a waiter, fine dining waiter, and to being a bartender. I love to say those were the favorite jobs I ever had.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you and I were talking earlier, even still in hospitality, I was a flight attendant for a very short time, but with Northwest Airlines, which ages me a little bit, but what a great experience, like just traveling and flying and going all over the place and getting to experience it while loving people, just servicing the hospitality.
Did you always know that you wanted to do, did you always know you wanted to do that? Or did it fit for some reason?
No, I didn't. Not that I never considered it. Of course, I think when you're at least who I was growing up, like that is fun. It's intriguing. It's, I'm ready to go. I mean, I had a friend that was interested in it and ended up not doing it. And I thought, you know what? They're coming to Detroit. They're going to do interviews. Yeah. Let me see what happens. I went and there it was.
That's the life. What did you get out of all that travel? Did you come back differently from it?
Yes, as a matter of fact. And it's not always, sometimes my day would be Detroit, Memphis, Memphis, Detroit, and then back to Memphis and back to Detroit. It could be like that. Or they said like, "Hey, you're going to go to Europe and you're going to Amsterdam today." And you're just like, "Yes, I made it." And,
That's
so
awesome.
It was just a great experience.
Yeah. Where did that lead you out of the flight attendant area?
After that, I ended up going back into hospitality and I did that. So I worked at a retirement center, a beautiful community, and oversaw 4 restaurants, a couple bars. So it was just a really high-end place. And so I did that for 8 years, almost 9 years. And then I got pregnant with twins. So I took about 2.5 years off. And at 2.5 years, I thought like, I am ready to go back to work. And that is where I went to a holiday party and met Yvette Campbell of MME's, like one of our finest. I met her at a holiday party and like within 2 weeks, she called me and said, "You mentioned that you want to go back to work." And she said, "I think you should do hotel sales." And I'm like, "Well, tell me more." And that the rest is history.
So how long ago was that before the broker's world?
Yeah, that would have been in probably 2010, 2011. So I've known her a long time. She's been very instrumental in my career, and we are kind of 2 peas in a pod in the way that we like to do things.
Mm-hmm. So, do you get into that kind of a conversation with people when you realize like there's a little extra force around you that's connecting you into these scenarios and you look back at your serendipity and you go, that's not a mistake?
Yes. 100%. Yes, I do. I think that just happens. I think it's the vibe that we give off. I think it's, what we're projecting, what we're taking in from people. I had someone say, like, Jen, when you're talking to someone, they feel like they're the most important person in the room. And I say, but that's because I feel like they are. Like I'm interested in what they have to say.
Yeah. It makes a difference.
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference. It really does. I think when you realize the kind of energy that you do put out, it really brings this kind of balance to who you are and what you're doing. And when you realize it, like a vet, and she knows that she can influence and affect by being involved in somebody's life, it's a true miracle to be in those kind of positions.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. What are the twins called?
Or-
They are 16 years old. And they will be 17 in June. And so they are both driving. They are both competitive cheerleaders. Yeah, we just went to state finals. So they did exactly what I wanted them to do for a sport, selfishly. So I love watching that. Yeah, now they're really getting focused for senior year and where they're going to go to school. And they both, have ambition to cheer. And so life is good.
I
They're
tell you,
smart.
I have such admiration for the strength that you carry in raising children. I remember raising children years ago, and it's not the same as it is now. And I can say that you putting your foot forward in your career as well is that's a big thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a wild ride. It's a great ride, but you're right. I mean, things are different now. Things, they have everything at their fingertips. And that can be good and bad and scary.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I know. I bet. Well, take us back into your story. Tell us how things evolved.
so I was married and went to this SWAT Christmas party where I met Yvette. And the way that we vibed, and she asked me if I wanted to get into hotel sales. And a little funny story about that is she was working at the Weston Book Cadillac at the time. And I thought, like, how glamorous, how great. That's where I want to go in Detroit. And she was like, no way. You can't come here. You have to go to another hotel, get your training for a year. Yeah. So I went over to the Athenaeum Suites in Greektown. I did almost a year and then they had an opening and she's like, okay, you got enough training, you can come on over. So I
Look
went
at the
there.
mentorship.
Yes, yes, for sure. And she knew what she was doing, and then I went over there and that was Starwood at the time. And so I know a
Mm.
lot of people listening right now will remember the Starwood days and they were wonderful and exciting. And I was just building my career and falling in love 100% with entertainment. I did a lot of sports and I just loved it. And then Marriott International came along and, of course, acquired Starwood. And so I moved into Marriott, which was also just an amazing, amazing years in my career.
Well, I know things kind of got a lot shooken up in your life around this time.
Yeah, they did. So, a driving force really that shaped a lot of my career and what I was going to do, personally and professionally. I lost my husband in 2016, and that experience honestly changed my perspective on life and in a very profound way. I think when you go through something like that, it forces you to reevaluate what really matters. Gives me a deeper sense of resilience and clarity. It lets me know, I am capable of handling things, but you have to be ready to handle these things. Life just threw you that curveball. And, I have daughters that are depending on me. And so when your life really shakes up like that, after it settled, it gave me the confidence to move forward in a really different way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Jeez. Nobody wants to go through that, but you did.
I did.
How old were your daughters?
Yeah, they were 6, almost 7 years old at the time.
Must have
Um,
taken it so hard.
and now I think being a little younger was on their side, to talk about social media just for a quick second. I think we were so lucky. Mike was a giant poster on Facebook and, he has all of these videos and pictures and posts. And I had, all of these things able that we could do now that kids, they wouldn't have had before. So,
Yeah.
we took it for what it was and move forward. We had to.
You have to. These are the things about life sometimes that, you don't have these choices. Lightly, I bring that my mother's living with us now and she's in full dementia. So it's one of these things that, you don't have a choice. Your life is going to change. And I like to say you're not walking north anymore, now you're walking west. Life is still moving forward and, where you are is different place than it was before, and we have to go through this acceptance and growth through it. And, you're an amazing figure for your daughters, obviously, and the strength that you give them, but to even the collective community that we're involved in, to know that your life didn't stall, it got stronger.
Yeah. Yes, it did. After some time, it really became a driving force. It changed who I was professionally and where I wanted to go as a leader and, you know, finding a deeper empathy just for people. The way that Marriott handled, this was a time where people didn't really work remote at all, especially in hotel sales. And I know the world's different now, but at that time I said, either I have to quit my job or you have to let me do this remote. And my general manager said, like, give it a shot. Let's do it. And on the days, where I couldn't be present and I couldn't handle my leads, Yvette and the team would jump in and take over for me and give me the credit for it.
Yeah.
And, when you go through something like that with your team, that changes how you will forever look at a team or employees or what somebody is going through. And it ended up being a really beautiful experience for me.
Yeah. We have an amazing community that we work within. The hospitality industry to me is just heart. It's all heart.
Mhm.
I think we're built a certain way. I think it's why you loved, waiting tables and bartending like I did, and hospitality just kind of flows through. And I think both of us can agree if we knew our lives would be they were the opportunities where we're at now, we take a little more time to smell the roses a little bit along the way, because obviously you've gotten yourself into a place now where all those years of being a hotel sales director, leader has grown into you being an entrepreneur now and raising two teenage daughters in a time that is just unbelievable. Tell us about how you find your strength every morning, how you grow from that.
I find it exciting to now really be an entrepreneur and, building a book of business. And, I know my strengths and I knew it early on for me. It's very relationship driven. I most all of my clients, once we really start working together, I really care about who your family is. I care what you did over the weekend. It goes so much deeper than budgets and rooms and contracts. And that I think is where I earn trust. And so, when I wake up in the morning and I get ready to go and do that, that's why it's genuine and I enjoy that. So it really drives me.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're definitely influenced by a strength and an energy that allows you to propel forward with positivity. So you're going to bring a ton of great advantages to your client as you grow into this broker's world. What are you enjoying the most about being a meeting broker right now?
So, it is it's different. But I love that I know the hotel world inside out. I know it like the back of my hand. The largest hotel brands in the world are who I worked for and I appreciate it so much. So being a broker that understands their side, I enjoy that we get to partner together and I think they almost can take, like a sigh of relief when I say like, "Hey, I just left the hotel side." That makes them feel better. I understand where they're coming from. I understand where their barriers are. Not everything is going to 100% go the way I want or what they want, but how do we work together to figure out how to book the business?
Yeah,
And I think that we can, and we do. And I like that trust. They know like she knows our world. She gets it.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's an exciting time in the meeting brokers world right now. I think most of the events industry doesn't understand how it works and how it plugs together. I think obviously the experienced ones do, but there's an opportunity for companies to grow, expand their teams, and take in the value wisdom that you've put forth over the years from the hotel side, and now leverage that into the wisdom of their ROI, their KPIs, what they're trying to come out the other side with. And I use a light analogy of like the real estate industry back in, the early 80s. It was a hit or miss kind of whether somebody sold their own house or used a real estate agent. But at this point now, there's so much liability if you make the wrong mistake, or if the world's going in a direction and you don't have support to help you get that conference moved or deal with the liability of, I don't know, lack of attendance or
Hmm.
different regions that you're working with, or how to negotiate in Europe versus the United States. And all of these services you're able to offer people now essentially with no cost because the hotels pay you to do this essentially through the commissions of the room nights that aren't affected by your efforts. This is the craziest part of our industry that I love is like we're an extension of that hotel sales team too.
Exactly right. And one thing I try to explain to clients sometimes when they don't understand the part of like, is our rate going to be higher because the hotel has to pay you? And I said, listen, like one of the best things to understand is hotels want to work with meeting brokers. Hotels want to pay you that commission because we're helping them just as much. We understand their world and we're easy to work with, I think, in that sense. So when the hotels, yes, are paying us, but they enjoy that partnership. So, it's not a bad thing when they see, oh, we have this third party or a commission coming through. I think they appreciate that, especially with MME, because we are so educated. We have the best team. We can handle any conflicts that they have and vice versa. I think just our global and our national sales teams that we have access to, the relationship that they have with our team is giant. I mean, we can call on them for anything and they are flex with us because we work so well together. That's important.
Yeah, it is. It is. When I was on the hotel side, the way I always saw it, and I kind of help explain it as well, is like the person that calls through the front door, the bride that's looking for a place to take her wedding. If you call the office, the sales office of that hotel through the front door, they know that you probably have very little experience and they're approaching that business differently. If you are an experienced person, they're going to see you as somebody without a lot of resource because they're not sure why you're calling them through a phone line. Where when you're working with a meeting broker, we're going through platforms like Cvent that go right into their back door. And when they receive an RFP that way, they know it's coming from a professional that can actually be efficient, save time, create an opportunity of business that's mutually benefit for both sides. And I think
100%.
that that's the value that we're moving forward in the future is when I was a hotelier on the hotel side, we didn't get a lot of that mutual or building business that's mutual for both sides. Sometimes the hoteliers need us to have that hard conversation with a client to explain like, look, we're going to South Beach. Their price point isn't going to be in the mid 200s. Like this is just what it is. So like sometimes we have to go back and help, massage that a little bit and say something like, hey, did you think about Puerto Rico? Just as easy, a little, another half an hour flight and you're in your price point. I think that that's where those beauties of having that relationship with a trusted advisor like yourself is what it really comes down to the end.
Agreed. Agreed. I couldn't agree more.
So where do you see yourself in a year in this business? What's your big dream?
Yeah, I am excited. I love that we can book globally anywhere in the world. And so, just gaining more clients that I can help and, walk them through the experience. And, I love going to hotels. I love sourcing. I like contracting. People might think that's odd. I actually like the negotiation process. I like being fair through it. I like surprising the clients on the end that, like, hey, look what we're going to do for you. And they're blown away because they haven't been offered
Yeah.
that before or they just don't know it's possible, and that's a
Well,
fun
let's slow,
part.
let's slow down
Okay.
down there for a minute because I think that that's the value add of what we're talking about that most don't understand is creating that relationship that we do with the hotel that does essentially hand out a value add scenario. I recently had a client that was fighting a budget in a Florida property, we'll say on the East Coast side, and they just needed a win. And we had built such a great relationship between the salesperson and myself that they comped the cabana for the afternoon and
Love
gave her
it.
that win so that she really could walk away with a budget win for her leadership as well. And I think that that's really what comes out of some of these conversations is that that might have not have been an obvious ask if you didn't understand how the hotels run. And I know that you do. So
hmm
what are some of the kind of things that you look for in that relationship that a client might be surprised by that you're able to accomplish?
I think that we have a lot of flexibility now on certain times of the year in attrition. A lot of people think like it has to be at 90%. If
Hmm.
we're a little worried about attendance or things are going to change a little bit, how can we get a little more flexible with that? Or how can we do room block reviews at certain dates that will work for the hotel and will work for us? And maybe we can manage that a little better. No one at the end day wants to fall short on food and beverage or rooms, and then it devastates them because they have to pay 50. But having the relationships that we do, we're able to leverage that for them where it takes some of that risk and scaring us out because we know how to navigate the conversation. We know how to contract with them. And checking, I think they're surprised sometimes that we'll look at all of their past business. I'll look at all of their past pickup. Where have you been? What are you doing? This is what you
Hmm.
contracted. Here's where you came in. Maybe we need to bring it down, or, maybe the client's like, I wanted 50 more rooms and they wouldn't give them to us. Well, if you keep growing, then we're going to help you evolve into that, or vice versa. But it's always about
Yeah.
managing, and kind of knowing where we are and where the hotel is, what they're sitting like, how firm is that going to be? Because we don't want to devastate anybody. And neither does the
Yeah.
hotel, So,
No, I mean, that's well said. I think that really kind of buttons up the idea overall that, that foreshadowing or that foresight that you're able to bring, that insight that you have from your hotel background, that really gives you the ability to see out and help the client understand worst case scenario, best case scenario, and
mhm.
find that strategy in the middle. And that, I can say personally, I've been appreciated around a few times myself, and it really makes you feel good to know that, like, hey, you're in the right place at the right time. Jen, I'm proud of you. I know
Thanks, Dina.
that every day you put your best self out there and you shine. And I know your clients are going to find you and you're going to be a rock star in this business and they're going to look amazing.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm loving it. I'm happy to be a part of the team. Thanks for having me on today. It's
Yes, I've
great.
so enjoyed it. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. I'll have it in the show notes as well.
Yes, amazing. My email is Jeng, at meetingsme.com. I welcome anything. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. You can go to any of those and you'll find my other ones. So please
I
contact
love it.
me. Let me know how I can help. And, I do like to tell people that even if we aren't going to work together, if you need a sounding board, if you need a support system, if you have a question, I'm happy to help you.
I believe it. All right, my friend. I'll catch you later.
All right, Dina.
Have a beautiful
You
afternoon.
too. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Well, there we go. Another amazing example of the universe working in its magnificent way today. Appreciate you showing up and look forward to seeing you again at Leadership and Enlightenment.